Just when you thought it was finally laid to rest, Sony has reached back in time and breathed life into a ghost. They've just forced a mandatory update on the 12-year-old PlayStation 4, and their official reason is so vague it's practically a state secret. This isn't about new features or flashy graphics. The company says this is all about security. But that single word raises 1,000 questions. What kind of security threat is so pressing that it requires an emergency patch for a console from 2013? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on this mysterious update. We will explore what Sony is desperately trying to fix on its old hardware, why the current generation PlayStation 5 is also feeling disappointingly stagnant, and the most shocking part of this story, how Sony is also still supporting the ancient PlayStation 3. A console that is nearly 2 decades old. Get ready, because the truth about Sony's update strategy is far more interesting than you think. Let's start with the main event. Out of the blue, PlayStation 4 owners worldwide are being prompted to download and install system software version 12.52. Now, for the millions who still have their trusty PS4 hooked up, an update notification isn't a total shock. After all, one was released just 4 months ago, back in March. But that update at least came with some semblance of a purpose, with patch notes mentioning it improved the messages and usability on some screens. A minor change, sure, but at least it was a change. This new update, version 12.52, offers no such comfort. The official patch notes are a masterclass in corporate minimalism. They contain a single, solitary sentence. We've made some security fixes to the system software. That's it. No further explanation, no details on what vulnerabilities were patched, nothing. This level of secrecy is what transforms a mundane update into a genuine mystery. Why be so quiet? We're talking about a console that launched in November of 2013 for $399. Its powerful for the time semi-custom 8-core AMD Jaguar processor has long been surpassed. It is a legacy machine. So what kind of data is Sony scrambling to protect on these aging consoles? Are we talking about PlayStation Network account details, credit card information that might still be stored on the system? Or is this about patching a deeper, more fundamental exploit in the Orbis operating system, perhaps one that could allow for widespread piracy or homebrew, something console manufacturers fight tooth and nail to prevent? Sony's silence invites speculation. It suggests that whatever the flaw was, it was significant enough to warrant deploying a global patch, but not something they want to advertise to the public. Potentially for fear of drawing attention to the very weakness they just fixed. It's a classic case of the less you know, the better, which for the end user is never a reassuring stance. It's a stark reminder that even on old hardware, your digital footprint and security remain a very current issue. This isn't just paranoia, it's a reflection of a long and storied war between console makers and the hacking community. Ever since the first PlayStation, there has been a relentless cat-and-mouse game. Hackers and modders work to crack open the systems, not always for piracy, but often for the sheer challenge and the desire to run their own custom software or homebrew. This can lead to incredible things, like turning a console into a full-fledged Linux computer or running emulators for older games. But for Sony, any unauthorized access is a gateway to piracy, which directly threatens their billion-dollar business model. They pour millions into sophisticated hardware and software security to keep their platforms locked down. A vulnerability on the scale of the PlayStation 4, with over 117 million units sold, represents a catastrophic threat. A successful, easily replicable exploit could unleash a wave of pirated games, devastating software sales, and undermining the entire ecosystem. This is why their response is so swift and so silent. Announcing the specifics of the patch would be like giving a roadmap to other aspiring hackers. They're plugging a hole in the dam and hoping nobody noticed it was leaking in the first place. But this strange, phantom update for the PlayStation 4 doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's a single piece in a much larger and, frankly, much more boring puzzle that is Sony's current software strategy. If you zoom out, you'll see that console owners on both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 have been navigating a desert of meaningful updates for months. The PlayStation 4 hasn't received a significant new feature since the PlayStation 5 launched back in 2020. It's on life support, and these security patches are the equivalent of a doctor checking its vitals. That's understandable, but what's less understandable is the creative stagnation affecting the current generation PlayStation 5. This is supposed to be Sony's flagship, the center of its gaming universe, yet its recent software updates have been described as lackluster at best. The most significant and celebrated update in recent memory wasn't a bold new innovation, but rather Sony correcting its own mistake. Let's rewind to late last year. To celebrate PlayStation's 30th anniversary, Sony released a series of beautiful classic themes, harkening back to the golden days of the PS1 and PS2. The community absolutely loved them. They were a nostalgic, heartfelt tribute. And then, in early 2025, Sony inexplicably removed them. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Fans were baffled and angry. Why introduce something so popular only to snatch it away? It took months, but Sony finally listened. In April, a new system update brought the themes back, this time permanently. While it was the right move, it tells a worrying story. Sony's biggest software win of the year wasn't a groundbreaking new feature. It was simply reinstating an old one they shouldn't have removed in the first place. It shows a reactive, not proactive approach to community management. This isn't an isolated incident. For years, users have been clamoring for basic quality of life features that remain absent. The ability to properly organize games into folders on the main screen, a staple of the PS4, is still missing. Customization options for the control center are minimal, and while some third-party integrations have happened, the overall user experience feels surprisingly rigid and locked in compared to the robust, evolving ecosystem of the PlayStation 4 in its prime. It's amazing what happens when the community speaks up, isn't it? If you agree that Sony should listen to its players more, hit that like button to let us know. Now, let's get back to the update mystery, because it's about to get even weirder. If you think a security patch for a 12-year-old console is surprising, prepare to have your mind blown. The PlayStation 4 isn't even the oldest piece of hardware Sony is still actively maintaining. In March of 2025, the very same month the PS4 got its last minor update, Sony did something truly unexpected. They released a new firmware update for the PlayStation 3. Let that sink in. The PlayStation 3, a console launched in 2006, received a system software update in the year 2025, bringing its firmware to version 4.29. This is an incredible level of long-term support. And unlike the PS4 update, this one had a fascinatingly specific purpose. According to the official patch notes, the primary reason for the update was to renew the Blu-ray player encryption key. What does that even mean? In simple terms, Blu-ray discs have a layer of digital rights management, or DRM, that requires a valid, up-to-date encryption key on the player to function. As new discs are manufactured, these keys are periodically updated. If a player's keys become too outdated, it will eventually lose the ability to play newer Blu-ray movies. So, this PlayStation 3 update wasn't about security in the way the PS4 update was. It was about preventing a core hardware feature, the disk drive, from becoming a useless piece of plastic. Sony essentially performed digital surgery on a 17-year-old console to ensure it could continue to function as a media player. The patch also claimed to make some minor improvements to system performance, but the Blu-ray key was the star of the show. This is a level of commitment to legacy hardware that is almost unheard of in the fast-paced tech industry. It shows that Sony is, at some level, still looking out for its most loyal, long-term customers, ensuring the machines they bought decades ago don't just die. This seemingly small act for the PlayStation 3 touches on one of the most contentious topics in modern gaming: digital ownership. In an age where we buy digital games and movies, we often don't own them at all. We are merely purchasing a license to access them, a license that can be revoked or rendered obsolete at any time. We've seen digital stores shut down, taking entire libraries of games with them. This PS3 update is a rare and commendable counterexample. Sony recognized that the Blu-ray drive was a key selling point of the console, and a failure to support it could be seen as a betrayal of the consumer contract, potentially even opening them up to legal challenges. By renewing the encryption key, they are preserving the physical media functionality of the device, acknowledging that the people who bought it expect it to work as advertised, even almost 2 decades later. It's a quiet acknowledgement that in a world of fleeting digital licenses, the right to use the physical hardware you paid for should and must endure. So, what does this all mean when we put it together? We have a mysterious security patch for the PlayStation 4, a series of uninspired updates for the flagship PlayStation 5, and an unbelievable longevity patch for the ancient PlayStation 3. The common thread here is maintenance. Sony's current strategy isn't about wowing us with innovation on the software front. It's about housekeeping. It's about risk mitigation. The PS4 update is a frantic, silent effort to patch a potentially catastrophic security hole to protect user data and, more importantly, their own revenue stream from piracy. The PS3 update is a calculated move to prevent hardware obsolescence, maintain brand loyalty, and avoid potential legal headaches surrounding consumer rights and physical media. It's a pragmatic, if unexciting, display of corporate responsibility. And the PlayStation 5's lackluster updates, they are perhaps the most telling piece of the puzzle. They suggest that the console, now approaching the latter half of its own life cycle, is considered feature complete in Sony's eyes. The company's vast software engineering resources are no longer focused on adding bells and whistles to the current UI. Instead, the focus has almost certainly shifted internally towards what's next, the heavily rumored PlayStation 5 Pro and the eventual development of the PlayStation 6. The era of bold, system-level experimentation on the base PS5 seems to be over. For those still gaming on a PlayStation 4, the message is crystal clear. Your console will be kept safe and functional, but do not expect anything new. It is a legacy device, a cherished relic being kept on life support. For PlayStation 5 owners, the road ahead may be filled with incredible games, but the console's user interface and feature set are likely to remain largely as they are. Sony is playing defense, not offense. They are plugging leaks in their older ships while steering their main vessel on a steady, unadventurous course. It's a practical strategy, but for a community that thrives on excitement and the next big thing, it can feel profoundly underwhelming. We'll be tracking Sony's every move, from these strange legacy updates to what's next for the PlayStation 5 and beyond. So make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, so you don't miss our deep dives into the future of